A lone cargo pilot lands on a moon that smells like rain and finds a winged stranger scavenging for scraps. A bounty hunts her. A syndicate claims her body as property. In the next heartbeat, kindness becomes a crime, alarms rise, and one choice will decide who escapes and who vanishes into the dark. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The gas giant hung like a dim lantern over Calder 6, and every light in Port Chateauquay tried to imitate it. Riven Heart guided the wayfarer kite through the docking veil, watching blue fields ripple across the hull like slow water. He had flown so long, in lonely corridors, that his thoughts kept their own schedules. Check fuel. Price supplies. Avoid trouble. Sleep later. The commerce lanes were busy, and the air inside the station smelled of hot circuitry, strong tea, and, faintly, rain, though Riven knew there had been no real rain here in decades. He shut down the engines and walked the grating toward the supply arcade, passing stacked crates stamped with a dozen logos and as many warnings. Movement by the recycler hoppers pulled his eye. A figure crouched there, careful and quick. She looked almost human from far away, until the light found the fine scales along her temple and the folded lines of two thin wings against her back. When she reached into the bin and tugged a half-tin, eaten ration bar free. Her hands showed small, curved claws. She handled the wrapper like it might bite her. "Away from there!" shouted Garrick Malvo, the depot owner, heavy boots ringing on the floor. He raised a shock baton, its tip flickering cold blue. "No begging, Scalback." The woman pulled back, eyes gold dark and startled, the ration bar slipping from her fingers. The baton crackled, and Riven did not think. He stepped between them. "You're aiming wrong," he said, soft but steady. "Try pointing it at whoever wrote your customer policy." Garrick scowled. "Mind your lane, pilot." "That depends," Riven said. He held out his credit wafer. "I'll take a premium meal pack. Make it 2. Charge me the station fee you forgot to mention." Garrick grumbled, ran the transaction, and shoved 2 steaming boxes across the counter. Riven carried them to the woman and knelt like they were trading secrets. "It's hot," he said. "Eat slow." She blinked as if the picture might fall apart if she moved too fast. Then she lifted a piece of seasoned protein, tasted it, and a small sound escaped her throat, a kind of relief that made Riven feel like the station lights had warmed by a degree. "Thank you," she said. Her voice held a faint music, not decoration, just the way her words were built. "I do not want trouble." "Me neither," Riven said, "but trouble keeps showing up." With a baton, he pushed the second box toward her. "Save this for later," Garrick muttered near the doorway. "She's a runner from the Marrow Syndicate, slipped a contract bond. Rumor says she took patented gene work with her." The woman's shoulders drew tight. Riven studied her face, tired but unbroken. "Is any of that true?" he asked. "My name is Miara Drakel," she said. "I left a binding I did not choose. That is all." Riven nodded once. "Then that's enough." Around them, the market swelled with shift change. Drones glided by like qui. A hollow-voiced ad promised real cinnamon for a fair lie. Riven lowered his voice. "Where do you sleep?" "Maintenance tunnels. They are warm some nights, cold others." Her wings twitched under the thin cloth binding them close. Riven pulled a thin card from his pocket. "This opens the pilot's lounge down corridor A7. Water tastes like it was born yesterday. Heat works. There's a view of the traffic lanes if you like counting ships." He hesitated. "I'm due to refuel and restock. Back before next bell." Miera stared at the card as if it might wing itself away. Why would you do this? Someone did the same once, he said. They did not ask me to explain myself first. He stood and nodded toward the lounge corridor. Go before Jarek finds another policy. He turned, boots steady, and let the crowd fold around him. Behind his calm, a thought flared bright. A syndicate would not give up a binding lightly. If the rumor was true, a hunter would be near. There, by the customs arc, Riven saw a tall figure in slate travel gear, a badge like a winter coin on his coat. Short haircut, steady eyes that never stopped measuring. Cade Rourke, license tracker. Riven kept walking, changed his pace, and filed the hunter's presence where urgent things live in the mind. At the fuel kiosk, Riven bought fusion cells and a sack of staple food. He added coffee with a real bean profile because kindness should have taste when it can. He loaded the cart and headed for the lounge, thinking about all the times he had eaten alone and how the quiet sometimes felt like a room with no doors. The pilot's lounge door chirped green when he flashed his card. Inside smelled clean, like new cloth and filtered air. Miara sat in a corner, the warm box closed beside her, as if guarding it. When Riven entered, she stood too fast, then laughed softly at herself. Her laughter sounded like wind in a tight canyon. You came back, she said. Like I said. He set down the bag. Also brought coffee. Miara looked at the cup like it was a relic. Where I was raised, we drank steam with a memory of plants. This smells like a story. They sat at a simple table near the small port that showed ships drifting past like patient fish. Outside, the gas giant rolled its slow storms, and Shadow Quay glowed as if the moon had learned to keep its own daylight. They will hunt me. Miara said after a while, not because I stole a thing, but because I refused to be one. Riven's jaw moved once, the way it did when he made a choice. Then we'll leave before their boots point this way. We? She asked, careful. I have a ship, he said. She is old but honest. There's space in her for two and a long road. He held her gaze. No contract, just a door that opens when you knock. Miara touched the lounge card, then slid it back across the table. I won't keep your key, she said. But I will keep your offer. Outside the port, a patrol drone paused, then moved on. Somewhere beyond that, Cade Rourke stopped to ask a terminal a question. The station answered with numbers and quiet clips of video. The clock above the coffee machine struck a soft tone that sounded like the start of a countdown. The hook had set itself, and neither of them looked away. Riven showed Miara the shortest path to the dock without crossing any security loops. Shadow Quay had blind corners if you knew where to look, places where cameras had been painted over and then painted over again by different hands, each layer a quiet note in a long song. They moved like people who needed a little time and had none. The Wayfarer Kite waited in Bay 7, a patchwork freighter with a kind face. Whole tiles in 4 shades of stubborn. Her name was hand-lettered near the nose because Riven liked letters more than logos. When the ramp lowered, the ship sighed like a house that knows its owners. Inside smelled of metal cleaned more often than money allowed, of baked starch and a hint of citrus from a single plant clipped to a rack. Riven gestured toward the galley. Water, food, a real fabricator if you need clothes that do not hurt your wings. Miara's shoulders eased. She pulled the binding free and let her wings stretch a little. In the ship's gentle gravity, the membranes unfurled like dusk. My people lost our son, she said quietly. Some of us were changed so we could live on less and breathe not quite air. These changes make the Marrow Syndicate think we are patents, but we are people who wake and sleep and want. Wanting is a good proof of life, Riven said. He checked the dock timer. We have 20 minutes before a patrol sweep. Less if luck looks away. As if summoned, the comm barked. Day 7, hold for inspection. Riven muted it. He glanced at Miara. That will be Cade Rourke, I expect. He opened a locker and took out a slender case. Inside lay a disguise mesh suit, thin as late ice. This can project a human overlay for a short time, he said, enough to pass a handheld scan. Miara's eyes widened. You smuggle? Not people, he said. Not anymore. He smiled without shilling teeth. And today, we are not smuggling. We are being polite to technology. The dock door hissed. A silhouette in slate stepped aboard without apology. Cade Rourke's voice was even. Pilot Riven Hart. That's my name, Riven said. And this is my new maintenance tech, Marina Bren. He nodded to Miara, now wrapped in. Rourke studied Miara, as if memory could peel layers better than machines. Did you visit the pilot's lounge this cycle? Yes, she said. Accent shifted just enough. The shower works there. Rourke lowered his device, then raised it once more, scanning the bulkhead. You have a hull signature I've seen before, Hart. She's famous, Riven said, for breaking down in scenic places. He kept his hands loose at his sides, not near the emergency controls, not near the hidden things. For a long breath, choice hung in the air. Then Rourke stepped back. We will be watching your departure vector. He turned, then paused at the ramp. If you are harboring a fugitive, think about how small a ship is when the law comes to visit. After he left, Riven's jaw moved. He is not wrong about the size, he said, but he is wrong about the visit. He slid into the pilot seat. Miara took the second chair without asking permission, hands light, ready to learn. They checked systems fast. Riven pushed off with the calm of someone guiding a stubborn animal. The kite eased through the bay gates, waved at the control tower by habit, and slid into the traffic stream. When the jurisdiction line blinked green, Riven tapped a program he had written on a long night. The ship's signal split like a rhyme. One continued on the filed course, a ghost obedient and boring. The other, the true ship, rolled into the dust ring where sensors sometimes saw only powder and forgotten rock. Clever, Miara said, watching contrails of numbers braid apart. The dust clung to the hull, dimming them like moth wings. Outside, the gas giant's auroras softened to a green sigh. We'll drift on this shadow for a while, Riven said, easing power. If Rourke follows the ghost, we gain an hour. If he splits his net, we gain a thought. Miara leaned over the nav console. Her fingers danced through the old interface like she was coaxing an instrument to sing. Your array is good, she said, but it can listen better. She tuned a filter, then another. Faint returns sharpened, clutter resolved. A small, proud smile touched her mouth. Your ship will hear footsteps before they choose a hallway. You're hired, Riven said, and the word landed between them like a found coin. When they cleared the dust belt, the stars opened. Riven brought coffee neither of them needed, and poured slowly, as if time would stretch to match the pour. Miara held the cup with both hands and watched the dark like it had lessons for her. When I was a child, she said, my father told me our wings were for crossing rooms no one else could cross. Then the syndicate told me my wings were for opening vaults they wanted open. I liked my father's version better. Sounds like a good teacher, Riven said. He tried, she said. He made choices he thought would save me. Some of those choices hurt later. I think he would still make them. Riven looked at the small plant clipped to its rack, leaves reaching for the faint lamp. I think he would be glad you are choosing now. A soft tone sounded. The ghost signal continued on like a polite liar. Nothing chased it. Maybe Rourke had stayed behind to ask better questions. Maybe the Marrow Syndicate would need a new rumor to follow. For the moment, the corridor ahead was only theirs. Riven pointed the kite toward the reach, the long gray between laws, where maps were more suggestions than promises. "We'll need a quiet port for repairs and food," he said. "Freehold Bastion is 3 jumps if we take the back roads." "Do back roads have views?" Miara asked. "The best ones," he said. They slid into jump, the stars stretching thin like threads. Miara closed her eyes, and for the first time since Riven had seen her, she looked not afraid of closing them. The door had opened. It would stay open now. The Wayfarer kite came out of jump into a corridor that felt like thin light. Tired beacons, a few rocks tumbling in polite ellipses. Riven checked the long-range returns and frowned. 3 signatures waited in the quiet, sharp and patient, like fish that knew the river better than boats did. "Pirates," he said. "They like freighters who look honest." "We are honest," Miara said, sliding to the secondary console, which may confuse them. The first hail came lazy and smug. "Cutter 1 to slow ship. Cut engines and prepare to donate." "They always try a joke," Riven murmured. He killed the main drive and let the kite drift, a tired leaf pretending to nap. The cutters tightened their circle. One extended magnetic hooks. "Count with me," Riven said. 3, 2, now." He lit a hidden thruster bank that most freighters did not own and spun the ship like a coin flicked just right. Hooks snapped on empty space. Alarms flared as a hairline seam in the aft section cried out. "Pressure drop," Miara said, already running. The corridor tilted with the maneuver. She moved faster, her wings catching odd currents as gravity flickered. The seam was thin but hungry, singing a high note that meant bad math. Miara pressed a scaled palm to the metal. Her biology knew things. Her scales shifted pattern, sealed heat to hold the margin. The cold bit her skin, but the sound softened. She worked the patch kit with her free hand, smoothed polymer, set clamps. The whistle died to a small sigh. "Hold," she whispered, as if to a frightened animal. The ship lurched again. Riven did not fly pretty. He flew alive. Miara returned to the cockpit with her bandaged hand tucked close. "Ready on point defense," she said. "2 mining lasers and a prayer," Riven said. "Then we aim the prayer," Miara answered. She targeted an asteroid beside the nearest cutter and split it like brittle candy. Debris fanned out, and the cutter's own missiles met the cloud, like bad decisions meeting better timing. Light flared and dimmed. "Jump in 20, Riven called. "I like living," Miara said, "so let us make it 19. Space folded, and the reach on the other side was quiet enough to hear your heart. Riven exhaled slow. "You saved our air," he said. "You kept us from meeting their bay with our faces," she said. "I believe that makes us even." "Not yet," he said, and went to find the medkit. He wrapped her palm with the same care he gave the ship, the same focus he brought to docking in crosswinds. "This will scar. Then it will remind me we chose well," she said. 3 small jumps later, Freehold Bastion rose on the scope. A string of HAB modules and cargo shells stitched into a wheel that turned slow enough to make a toddler laugh. Captain Vesta Morn met them at Bay 9, hair braided with copper wire. Left forearm a polished prosthetic that clicked soft when she thought. "Riven Heart," she said, grinning. "Still flying the kite instead of buying a new hull?" "Buying new things is a rich person's habit," he said. Vesta's gaze flicked to Miara, then back. No flinch, only a quick catalog a station runner needs. "Welcome," she said. "We host all kinds, but not the kind that sells people. We are the opposite of that kind, Riven said. Repairs began. Barter moved like music. Riven's spare coils for Vesta's crew time. Miara's quiet hours in the clinic, helping a medic who needed careful hands. A bag of real tea traded for a valve that would not complain at temperature swings. During a short rest, Vesta leaned on the rail beside Riven, watching cargo sleds glide like beetles under glass. Marrow Syndicate sent a suit through yesterday, she said. Soft shoes, hard smile, asked if anyone had seen a winged woman. We had not. Thank you, Riven said. Thank me with a favor someday, Vesta replied. For now, leave before Soft Shoes return with loud friends. Riven nodded. He stared at the field of stars beyond the dock. Leaving would not erase the shadow. Shadows learn the path. So he found a channel he had closed years ago and sent a coded call to Europa Wheel. The face that answered wore his jawline and his storm-gray eyes, but kept her hair in a short, practical sweep. Nora, he said. You still a good person, Riven? She asked, voice cool but curious. Most days, he said. I need counsel. I gathered, she said. Send what you have. Miara placed a slim crystal on the table. My father's notes. She said, he recorded the adaptive changes he designed for me before any syndicate came courting. The Marrow contract tried to claim my living body as property after the fact. Nora's eyes sharpened the way a surgeon's do. There are cases. A person is not a patent, she said. We can prove prior art and personal rights if the record is clean. It is clean, Miara said. It is also painful. Pain is evidence too, Nora said softly. Send the file. Come to Europa Wheel. I will meet you at Dock 3 with paperwork and patience. After the link went dark, Riven looked at Miara. You do not have to do this, he said. I know, Miara said, but running taught me how to breathe. It did not teach me how to rest. I would like to rest and not listen for boots. Then we will go, Riven said, and when the boots arrive, they can sit and listen instead. They finished the repairs. Vesta pressed a bag into Riven's hands at the airlock. Tea, she said, and a small tool that opens stubbing doors. Both have saved me more than once. You want a receipt? Riven asked. Bring me a story next time, Vesta said. A good one. We're working on it, Riven said. As the kite cleared the bastion's scatter of modules, a small band played in the common ring, music drifting into air vents and out again, turning a wheel of sound. Miara stood by the port and listened like the notes had words attached. What does it say? Riven asked. It says keep going, Miara replied. And it says do not forget who pushed you at the start. The reach ahead was long, full of corners where trouble and grace sometimes shared a table. They set the course to Europa Wheel, choosing side paths and slow lanes, because patience had become a form of armor. Between jumps, Riven taught Miara the shit's small secrets. Between lessons, Miara tuned the sensors until the kite could hear a lie turn in the dark. The maps grew thin, but their resolve did not. Europa Wheel glowed like a thoughtful bracelet under Jupiter's pale fire. The station ran on rules and routines, which made Riven's pulse tick fast. But Nora Halden met them at Dock 3 with a tablet and a smile that meant business first, hugging later, maybe. This way, she said, leading them through corridors that smelled like lemon cleaner and old money. We file an emergency injunction to freeze any bounty actions. Then we submit proof of prior art for the traits in question and cite the living person doctrine. The living person doctrine sounds like a thing that ought not need saying, Riven murmured. It needed saying enough to be written down, Nora replied, and sometimes needs saying again. The filings moved on rails greased by precedent and pushed by public light. Rights groups sent amicus briefs. A small crowd gathered in the station forum with signs that said simple things like "People are not products." Miara's face showed on a few screens, not as spectacle, but as symbol. She kept her chin level and her breath even, as if she had trained for this in places with worse air. A hearing linked judges from several habitats. A marrow advocate spoke of contracts and property and investment. Nora spoke of dignity and bodies as homes that cannot be sold. She pointed to the dates on Miara's father's research, to the patient notes in a neat hand, to the line where he wrote, "For my daughter, so she may choose her path." Miara spoke last, voice calm, words plain. "I am not a vault," she said. "I am someone who gets cold and laughs at bad jokes and eats too fast when the food is warm. What is in me is me." The court retired. The wait felt like watching ice melt. Riven and Miara walked to the garden dome, where earth plants grew in patient rows, and a few children played under a false sky. They stood near the pond, where small fish glimmered like living commas. Riven took Miara's hand, rough palm to warm scales, and the station noise softened. When the message arrived, Nora ran across the bridge with her tablet held high. "We won," she said, breathing hard. "Injunction granted, claim voided, bounties to be withdrawn, fines for predatory practice. They will appeal, but the door is shut in their face for now." Miara sat down on the low wall, laugh turning to a long breath that had been delayed for months. "Free," she said, trying the word like a new path underfoot. Riven knelt, not because knees make things truer, but because some moments ask for closeness to the ground that carried you this far. Days turned into weeks, while papers settled into their proper drawers. In that time, Riven and Miara made small plans that felt big. New filters, safer routes, food that made both of them feel seen. When they left, they did not run. They flew at a good speed, the kind you choose when the sky is yours. Work filled their days. They carried medicine to stations where budgets were thin. They ferried students to orbital schools with soft landings. They took, now and then, quiet passengers who needed new names and a chance to start a story in which they were not an object. A year later, on Haven Hub, their daughter was born. They named her Solace, because that is what she brought the first time she laughed at 3 a.m. With the lights low and the engine humming softly. She had small scales on her spine like a braid, eyes that read two kinds of light, and wings that fluttered like paper learning to be bird. Riven cried more than he expected. Miara smiled with a depth that turned the room gentle. Time did not erase the Marrow Syndicate, but time stole its glamour. Their appeal failed in stages. Public patience grew teeth. Some of their leaders changed jobs to quieter ones that did not include other people's bodies as line items. Cade Rourke found them years later at a service dock and set his badge on the table, now stamped for the Colonial Protection Bureau. "I took a different contract," he said, "one where I help keep doors open instead of shutting them." Miara poured him tea. "People can be new," she said. "On good days," Rourke answered. The Wayfarer kite earned a different reputation, the freighter that sometimes arrived with more supplies than you paid for. The crew that left a book on your table about kindness disguised as regulatio. The pilots who would stop for a blinking light on the edge of a lane and never ask you to justify your fear. When Solace turned 5, they painted a soft garden on a hull panel that had seen too many scorch marks. Children visiting the dock pressed their palms to the painted soil and giggled when their prints made the flowers look real. One evening, under a quiet sky above Europa, Riven and Miara anchored the kite as a temporary wall for a community greenhouse that needed windbreak while the frame set. The ship's shadow stretched across seedlings, like a patient hand. Neighbors laughed and traded recipes and told stories, while the stars did their slow work. As night deepened, a courier passed the dock. Riven tapped the blink light. 3 short, 1 long, 2 short, in old pilot code that meant safe passage. The courier answered with a pattern that meant lost but trying. Miara leaned against Riven, wing draped across his shoulder like a well-placed blanket. Solace slept in her arms, little fingers curled around a toy compass that did not point anywhere special. "Did you ever imagine this?" Riven asked. "Not this shape," Miara said, "but I hoped for its warmth." "Any regrets?" he asked. "Only that we cannot be everywhere at once," she said. "There are more doors to open." "We will teach others how," Riven said. They started a small program, no paperwork, just practice, where passing crews could borrow their jump charts and their calm. They called it the Homeward Library. Every chart came with a note. If you are lost, use this. If you are found, copy it for someone else. Soon the charts lived on other ships, then in other pockets, until the library existed even where the kite did not. Years later, Solace stood on her own ramp, taller now, wings strong, maps in her head that had never been drawn. "I'm going past the marked lanes," she said, grin brave, voice soft, eyes steady. "Be careful," Miara said. "Be curious," Riven added. "I learned from you," Solace said, and jumped, light as a promise, into a sky that did not argue. The kite's engines murmured. People on the dock waved small hands and large ones. In the greenhouse, leaves turned to catch a better angle of starshine. Riven took Miara's hand, and together they watched the dot of their child's ship fade to a thread, then to faith. They could have sealed the night with silence, but instead they tapped the blink pattern once more, across the dark, across the years, to anyone who might be searching. 3 short, 1 long, 2 short. Not a command, not a plea, only an offer. And somewhere, in some corridor where the map grew thin, a reply came back like breath after fear. Homeward.